Welcome to the party. I'm not here right now, but I want you to listen very carefully. These guys are very funny, so pay attention. Enough talk. It's showtime.
Hello and welcome to Bags of Action. My name's Steve and my co-host is Pete.
Hello.
This episode we are going to be talking about the 2012 film Dredd, starring Karl Urban.
Judgment is coming.
Is that the tagline?
That's on the poster, yeah. I'm looking at the poster.
Oh,
there.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, we're going to spoil this film to pieces. We're going to go through the whole damn thing. So if you haven't seen it, go away and watch it. Press pause, of course, first, and then come back. Otherwise, be prepared for major spoilers. So, let's get some of the embarrassing stuff out of the way, shall we first, Pete?
Don't be like that.
I've got my own confession, so don't worry. Yeah, we'll share it. This is a safe space.
Is your sharing that you watched it in the uniform?
No. Okay. That would have been something to praise, not to mock.
But it depends which uniform.
Easy.
Yeah.
So the first thing to point out is that Pete hadn't actually seen this until we decided to pick it for Bags of Action. Is that correct?
Yes, and I will explain myself.
Go on.
Mixture of things. I think, one, it sounds ridiculous. If I'm really, really, really excited about seeing a film, sometimes I won't see it, which sounds really weird because I don't want to be disappointed.
No, that's understandable.
Sometimes I really want a good Dredd film. I really want a film that does Dredd justice. No pun intended. But what if this isn't it? So I think as well, I wanted to see it in 3D. And then it seemed to go out of the cinemas really quickly. I was like, right, I'm going to go and see Dredd. Oh, Dredd. Oh, nowhere's showing Dredd. And then waited, and then for whatever reason just hadn't got around to watching it. So I'm glad that you picked it because it got my derriere into gear and made me go, right, I need to watch it. And I've actually watched it twice in a week. So
excellent. Well, I didn't actually get to see it at the cinema either, but for totally different reasons. One, because I loathe 3D, and I think it's a retro thing that doesn't bring anything new to the cinema. And they kept pushing it as Dredd 3D, and I thought, well, surely it's not all going to be 3D showings. And 95% of the showings that I could find were, all of them, 100% to begin with, are all 3D. And I thought, well, I don't want to see it in 3D. Then it, as you said, it came off quite quickly, and then they put late night showings in 2D, but at really strange times on strange days. And I thought, well, I'm not going to go to Harper's 10 showing on a Tuesday, so I missed it at the cinema completely. But as soon as it came out on DVD, I got it from a rental place thing.
Yep.
And
I borrowed the Blu-ray from Gavin, having met him in a park where I brought my daughter. He had his dog, and he handed it over. It must have looked very dodgy to anyone else, like in a kid's playground.
Yeah, suspicious.
Here you are, sir. Yes.
Package for you.
Yes, exactly. So, it's just the Blu-ray. I had the 3D and 2D version, but I haven't got a 3D television or Blu-ray player, so I watched it in 2D. So.
Okay.
In the interest of full disclosure.
Well, in the interest of full disclosure, are you a fan of 2000 AD growing up, or were you, or did you read the magazine?
See, this is the other reason I've never picked this film on here. I didn't. I think a lot of people that I know, other British sort of comic people and comic writers, will always go, I brought up on 2000 AD and kind of got into American stuff later. I'm completely the other way around. I read Marvel UK stuff as a kid, and I didn't really read any 2000 AD probably until in my 20s. I've read a reasonable amount now, but I'm certainly not the world's biggest Dredd expert.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because my story is almost exactly the same. I'm probably the other British comic book fan who wasn't raised on 2000 AD. It was never in my house growing up. I didn't see the magazine until I was probably 18, 20. I grew up reading UK British kids comics.
Yep.
So
Wizard Chips was my first.
Mine was like the Beezer
Nice.
and Dandy, and I never actually Beano, but I never actually read the Dandy. And then I did the jump straight to American comics, predominantly DC, which is what I grew up on, and later Marvel and everything else. And then later I came to Dredd. So that was my sort of admission and full disclosure is I didn't know a lot about Dredd until I was much later. So I haven't been weaned on him since, came off my mother's
That's
milk.
good. My slight concern was that you were going to know so much about Dredd that you'd go, no, Peter, no, Peter. That is wrong, Peter. Please stop speaking.
Actually, Pete, if you'd read 2008 in the magazine Prog 1472,
then you'd realise that actually is canon, but not Danny canon.
Ah, very good. But yes, I'm not, so I can't do that.
Okay, that's fine. Good. That's good. Although
it puts us on equal footing.
But it also could mean that a lot of listeners could be shouting at us at various points.
That's fine. I'm prepared for that, and I'm prepared for them to do that and tell us where we're wrong. But we can go on.
My chances of ever having a Future Shock accepted could be diminishing as.
But we've full disclosure. We've told everybody where we stand.
That's
so
true.
we were judging the film on its own merits.
Exactly. It's made me want to read more Judge Dredd. So that's good.
True.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, likewise, I had the same response. So it's not as if we read it, watched the film, and thought, well, I don't need to go back and read anything now. It's obviously all in the film.
Yes, indeed, indeed. So should we talk a little bit about the people working on the film and stuff like that?
Go for it.
So it's written by Alex Garland, who you may remember, whose novel The Beach was adapted by Danny Boyle.
Yep.
And then he went on to write 28 Days Later and Sunshine with Danny Boyle. So surprising in a way that Danny Boyle didn't direct this film. It was originally, I believe, going to be directed by Duncan Jones, but it was directed by Pete Travis, who has directed Vantage Point. Have you seen that?
I haven't, but I know of it. It's the one where there's a murder or something incident and then there's 8 points of view.
That's
or
right, yeah. So there's that, and then other than that, mostly TV, including The Bill and Cold Feet.
Good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So it's interesting, kind of not an obvious director at all, but I think does a very good job.
Yeah, I didn't think he did anything that made me think he did a horrible job, and there's amazing stuff in the film that, and from watching some of the stuff behind the scenes, I know that he put a lot of work into it, and though I'm not a fan of the 3D, I know that from watching interviews with him, he was looking at the rigs and going, oh God, these are hideous, we need to do this, we need to do that. So he's trying to do something special and do extra stuff with the 3D. He didn't want to make it the same old stuff coming out the screen towards you for no reason.
Yes.
And I thought, fair enough. So he's obviously put a lot of thought into it. So, yeah, he was fine as a director,
And so stars-wise, Karl Urban, who keeps the helmet on. I don't know why I sang that. I apologise. I was getting confused.
We're not doing a musical episode.
Confused with Keith Urban, I think. That's what happened there.
Yeah, we're not doing a musical episode. It's got Olivia Thirlby as Rookie Anderson, Lena Headey as Marmar, and Wood Harris as Kay, who I recognised, and it took me ages to work out that he was Avon Barksdale from The Wire.
Yes.
Yeah, I kept going, where do I know him from? And then I got to IMDb and I went, oh, it's you. Oh, okay.
It's a really small cast, isn't it? I think it's because it's a relatively low-budget film. It's kind of a bit like, you look back at things like Reservoir Dogs that are almost like a stage play. It's kind of one setting or one main setting and a really small cast. But I really like the fact that it was quite short. Not because I wanted it to end. The opposite. It meant I could watch it twice in a week. But it's a 95-minute film, which in the hands, I think, of different people, it probably would have been 2.5 hours of
absolutely
of kind of padding and flabbiness. But I really like it. I think it took me a second time to watch. I think because I know the last few shows we've kind of talked about how I'm kind of looking at it maybe from an industry head slightly, and I think that I had that mindset watching it for the first time. So I watched it again, just watching it, purely from an entertainment level. I think I got much more out of it, by watching it a second time. And I noticed things that I didn't notice the first time around. But I think the fact it was 95 minutes was really refreshing because it feels old school, but in a really good way. It feels like the kind of films that were made in the 80s and 90s. It still feels modern. It doesn't feel dated at all. But it feels like those kind of films that were just over an hour and a half long and just kind of dropped you straight in the action and off you go. Which I think, in a way, it's not comic booky in the kind of derogatory sense some people use that term, but it does feel like a comic because it just hits you straight away, and you're on a ride for an hour and a half.
Yeah, absolutely. So we should probably talk a little bit about the setup. That it's set in obviously Megacity One, which is this city that stretches all the way down the eastern coast of America. In the ruins of the old world and the new world, where outside is just desolate and nobody can really live, and everyone's squashed up together in these giant cities.
And I love the start. I mean, the start reminded me a bit of District 9, the kind of pre-title sequence. And what I liked about it, particularly compared to the other Judge Dredd film, is it felt grounded. This is our world, and not that far in the future. There's social unrest. The Dredd voiceover is great. I thought the hairs on the back of my neck were kind of standing up before we even got to the titles, which is a good sign.
Yeah, Mega City One, mega highways, mega this, mega that, and just talks about the volume of crime in the city and stuff, and the whole of justice being the only thing, and the judges. And it was pretty shocking. At the start, when he lays it all out, the size and the scale and how much chaos there is, you begin to realize that they are just a very, very thin line, because he says later on to Anderson, we can only respond to about 8% of crimes.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, 8%?
Yeah. And then later they say, the judges are losing this war. And I really like that, because it would be so easy. The Hollywood thing could easily make it, they're kind of untouchable. The judges, so they are, and Dredd himself is very, very, very capable, but it's in the confines of the real world, which I think is brilliant. And that's one of the things I really love about the film.
And the other thing is this, we'll come on to the figures later on about how well it did and stuff, but for me, this felt very much a day in the life of Dredd, the film. There wasn't any world-shattering events. There wasn't anything that was going to remake the whole of the humanity on the entire planet and create a new race of anything that was going to change anything, or, they're traveling back in time to undo the damage of the nuclear bombs or any of that. It was just, here's a guy, he's a cop, he's working in the toughest, meanest streets, on this hell on earth, and that's it. Off he goes, because he says to Anderson, "Okay, where do you want to go, rookie? You choose." And he could have gone. She could have picked something other than peach trees, and the film would have been something totally different. But equally, it just would have been another day in the life of Dredd, and I kind of love that, because you could have an infinite number of Dredd films like this. Yeah,
and I think it doesn't feel like a franchise. It just feels like a good film, which is so rare, especially a genre film these days. I think it's really rare. But so Anderson is, she's kind of our window to this world in a way, isn't she? Because she's, it's her, she's got psychic abilities, and it's kind of her first day on the job, and ultimately she's under Dredd's wing for the day, and he has to kind of assessment day, right? So it's a well-worn premise in a way, because it's new person, it's your eyes to the world and all that kind of stuff. But it works here really, really well because of the two main characters and how they play off each other, and the fact that Dredd is so black and white, and then suddenly he's working with somebody who's all about shades of grey.
Yes, the fact that she's got the psychic ability, the fact that, he said, the senior judge says to him, "Oh, well, she's so many points off." And he's like, "Well, she failed then." He's like, "Well, no, give her a chance." "Well, she failed." There's nothing. There's no kind of, "Oh, let's give her a chance with Dredd." It's like, no, you either passed or you failed, and she failed. And he only goes along because the judge says, "Just give her a chance." And he's like, "Well, all right," grudgingly. But so we're kind of jumping all over the place. But right at the beginning, when the senior judge calls him in and says, he's talking to Anderson, and he says to her, "Who am I with? How many people are behind, tell me something about him." And Anderson starts reading Dredd.
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, there's a man." Yeah. And he says, "Oh, he's there's rage, but he's held it in check. And there's something else." And she starts to say something, and the judge cuts her off.
Yeah.
What the hell? What do you think she was going to say? Because I've been scratching my head.
I don't know, and I love the fact we never find out.
Ah, no, it's so frustrating.
Especially if they don't make any more, it'll be more frustrating. I mean, but yeah, no, it's just, I think the obvious thing would be in some point to pay that off later, or for her to have said to him she knew whatever it was. But the fact that I mean, because again, we're jumping over a bit, but Anderson also has some kind of things hidden as well. I think everyone's subconscious has obviously got things in it they wouldn't want to reveal. But I also like the fact that it's the respect is there to not let her go any further. Yeah, it's.
She just says he's got this anger and there's something else. She goes, there's something underneath. And he's like, that's enough. No, what was it? Tell me.
And there's a great line there as well, isn't there? Because Dredd's got some great lines in this film. And I think one of the first ones is when, she failed by 3 points. So, as you said, so today can give her a pass. And she goes, we're going to chuck her in at the deep end. And he goes, it's all the deep end. That's such a good line. That's such a good line.
I love the payoff. We talk about payoff, stuff at the beginning and stuff at the end. And he says, are you ready, rookie? Yeah, you don't look ready. And then, of course, the payoff later on is he says, are you ready, rookie? Yeah, you look ready. Later on when she got the gun, I was just like, oh, come on. He's got a little bit of respect for her at this point. He knows that she's capable. He understands and he appreciates her ability. And he's like, let's finish this. But he knows she can do it. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, come on. That's so good.
Yeah.
He's got some cracking one-liners. Anyway, so she's on her assessment day. Judge Dredd has to take her out and show her something a day. And, he says, right, your assessment starts here. If you lose this, instant fail. Use this, instant fail. You do this, instant fail. Where do you want to go? And she picks triple homicide at Peach Trees.
Yeah.
And this is where we meet Mama.
We do, Lena.
So what do you make of her?
I wouldn't want to argue with her. I'm honest. It's interesting. It's kind of like depravity within depravity, and I think at this point it just suddenly gets even darker quite quickly because they're taking photos of people while they're on slow-mo and then skinning them and chucking them off the building.
Yeah. Because they were stealing from her.
Yeah, that's they won't do that again in a hurry.
Well, I don't think anybody would do that. But what did you think of Lena Headey as Mama?
It's interesting because it's quite, I think because this comes so soon off the back of Game of Thrones, you're kind of used to her being a slightly more evil character than she's been in the past. But no, she's really good. I think it's quite a contained performance. It would have been really easy to ham that up, but she's just rough as really.
She's really, really nasty. We get to see glimpses of what she did in her position and how she emasculated her pimp and then took over his business and then took over the block, starting at the top and working her way all the way down 200 levels, killing every other gang in the whole block.
And it's great. They do exposition really well in this film because there's a lot. Well, there's not that much to tell, but there's a lot that's happened before the film has started, I suppose. So Dredd's voiceover sets the world up, but actually the way that they show the scenes of the Mama clan taking over the building, I thought were really, really cleverly done, and how the other three gangs were kind of wiped out. I think it's really clever.
She was particularly creepy. The way that she just kind of just like, skin him, throw him over the side. Just, so casual in her attitude.
And we see the first examples of slow-mo here, don't we? Which is the drug that makes you feel like you're going 1% of normal speed.
Yeah, which is, the effects of that and the camera work and just slowed it down were brilliant. It was amazing. And just when she's in the bath and the water coming off her hand is just sparkling like diamonds raining down. And it's just amazing stuff.
Yeah. No, it's one of the highlights of the film, I think. Had the slow-mo stuff, and it's not done. It's done for a reason. It does tie into the story. It's not just kind of showing off what they can do. I know you're not a fan of 3D, but one thing I did notice was, going back a bit to the chase scene at the start, there are quite a few shots that feel like they'd be amazing in 3D. Because of the perspective, and I think the slow-mo stuff, I'd imagine. If anyone ever decides to put this back in the cinema in 3D, I would go and see it. I'd love to see how those kind of slow-mo scenes and the liquid stuff and things work in 3D, because obviously it was shot for 3D, so those shots are set up in that way.
Yeah. So her Dredd and Anderson go to Peach Trees, find this triple homicide and skinned people, and suddenly they have to deal with finding the perpetrator.
There's another great line here as well. because she's not wearing a helmet.
Yeah.
My helmet, it interferes with my psychic abilities. I think a bullet might interfere with it more. It's just so cold. It's great. It's great.
It's like, your choice, whatever. He's just, he's seen it all before. He's not bothered. If she dies, then she dies. But it's her choice. He's told her. He's given her his warning. He's not going to go on and harp about it. She's a grown woman. She can take care of herself. He's like, right, fine. I've told you. It's not a fail, but he obviously doesn't approve. But he's not going to stop in and say, you will put your helmet on. If she's not ready, then she's not ready. And he doesn't think she is at this point. He thinks she's just green and she can't cope.
Yeah, and it's just, I love the fact that he's so detached. It's just, detached but funny, which I think is very hard to pull off.
Yes, it was really good. It's really, really good. So yes, they investigate. They find the first den of slow-mo. They kill a whole bunch of people in very slow motion with the fat waving in the slow-mo breeze. The bullets go through them. I was laughing at that. Which says something about me. But yes, and they catch a K.
Yes.
Who they think he's.
Well, she's 99% certain that he's the killer, which means they can't execute him because of that 1% of doubt.
And Dredd says, "Do return me a lot of paperwork if you just confess." It's just like he expects him to confess. Yeah. He's like, "Go on, confess. Send me a lot of paperwork. Go on, please."
So the decision.
And he doesn't.
No. So the decision is made, and this kind of is the catalyst for everything else that happens hereafter. But they decide to take him for interrogation, which I wouldn't want to be interrogated by Judge Dredd. Thank you very much.
No, once they put him in one of these sort of torture cubes and do stuff to them, you really wouldn't want to.
But again, I guess that's what it's quite nice that he could be interrogated, but equally he could face the wrath of Mama. So it's he's between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, he doesn't really want to die, but he also is hoping that somehow she'll rescue him at some point. And then, of course, Mama realizes what's going on, and they lock the whole building down. I felt really sorry for that techie guy.
I thought you were going to say the homeless man.
Well, I felt sorry for him as well. He gets a warning.
He does get a warning.
Otherwise you're going into the isocubes. And he's like, okay. And he just doesn't move, and the shutters come down and squash him into a puddle.
They do. I do. I think later in the story particularly, I do feel sorry for the red-eyed computer guy. But this was the only bit of the story that I didn't quite buy.
Right, go on.
His ability to kind of sweet-talk Control into letting them do the DEFCON systems test. Right. And the fact that nowhere in the system did that link up with the fact that two judges were already in there. That was the only thing I thought. It seemed a bit of a convenient plot point rather than anything that... It's a grounded film. I think I bought everything else. It was the one thing I thought, do you know what? I'm not sure they would have been able to do that. But, again, that's just me being hypercritical.
But as soon as they went in, of course, all of their radio and everything got cut off.
True.
So they couldn't communicate. They couldn't get out and talk to people and tell the whole of justice what was going on. So they're effectively locked in and waiting to sort it out themselves. And yes, they attempted to go into the medical center, but the guy's like, there is no neutral ground. It's there's two of you and there's a lot of her, so I'm not letting you in, which kind of stuffs them up a little bit. Yeah,
it does. It does big time, really. It's good. It's good. And then from here, it kind of ramps up really that the building is closed down. And what are they going to do? Can they take out one section at a time? What's their strategy going to be as well? I say there's no communication, so it basically comes down to their ability to kind of fight their way through. And it's not just Mama's people; it's essentially the whole building has been told that there's a judge that you can. The two judges, take them out, and that's that. We can get on with your business, but we just need this dealt with.
Yeah, she kind of says, "Stay out of my way. If you get in my way, I'll kill you, but we're going to take out the two judges." And everyone kind of locks the doors and hides in their apartments and waits for it to be over. And Dredd thinks he's basically wading through 200 floors of shit, whereas Anderton's like, well, I grew up in a place like this. There are good people here. They're just scared. So don't write them off. But Dredd is at this point is obviously thinking, well, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She hasn't got a bloody clue.
It's nice as well, I think, because, I don't know, depending how you interpret Dredd or Robocop or Dirty Harry, or any of these kind of characters, I guess, in one way it's kind of, it's vigilante justice. Well, it's not vigilante, it's actually within the system, but it's a very kind of black and white, extreme right-wing kind of view of things. And she, I guess, she's the opposite. She's the people-focused, kind of softer, considered. But then it doesn't take long for things to her to kind of... It's interesting, they don't swap places, they almost meet in the middle, I think, across the course of the film. So as soon as there are people there, and it isn't long before she's called upon to draw her weapon.
Yes, and she kills somebody, and then later on we find out who that person is, and she feels regret, and she hesitated when she did it.
Yeah.
So they bring that round kind of full circle.
So she hesitates here because, it seems like it's all the kind of gangbangers that go around the building, but some of them are, I think, people that have come out of their apartments and just kind of gone, do you know what, I'm going to help get this sorted and out of the way. Because, I suppose attack is the best form of defense kind of thing. Let's get this sorted and we can go back to normal kind of thing. So, essentially she has to kill someone because he tried to kill them. So it's attempted murder of a judge, death penalty.
Yes. I love the first bit, though, where basically they're trying to get to somewhere and there's about 9 guys, and Dredd sort of says, I'm the law, get out of the way. He goes, no, you step out from there and you're dog meat. And he's like, okay, thanks for letting me know. And then he just, we get to see the lawgiver in full effect when he just sort of blows people apart with all sorts of things. And earlier, right at the beginning with the chase, he goes, what, your move, hot shot? What do you say? Hot shots. And he blows that man's head off. Yeah. With the hot shot thing that makes him fizz, and it's like, oh god. But we get to see all sorts here, and he's like, what do you want to do? So even when they're coming after him and Anderson, and they're about to shoot him, he stops as part of her assessment, like it's just a trial, it's not real, and says to her, what do you want to do? And she's like, gas? Yeah, okay, let's do that. He's just so casual about it, whereas she's obviously bricking it that they're going to kill them.
Well, like you say, it is just an average day in his life, but it's still very heightened. And so I suppose is he just that cool? And this is like a big, big day? Or is literally this is what every day is like being a judge? And if that is the case, please make 40 more films.
I get the feeling that this is just another day for him. It's just another... Because later on, one of the judges, Lex, says it's a meat grinder. That's what it is. And to some degree, he's right. So Dredd, he can't be angry all the time outwardly, but he's obviously upset and annoyed by the system or the way that people react and behave, that he hates them, or I don't know, maybe he's just disappointed in them. But there's this simmering rage that he can control and channel that makes him such a feared judge that everybody knows who he is.
Yeah. And I think it's almost like, well, if they just did as they were told, they'd be fine. And I think well, I've warned them. They didn't do as they were told. Fine, move on. So basically Anderson uses her psychic ability to get them into an apartment. She starts talking to a woman through the door. Obviously, because she can read her mind, she can say the right things to be allowed in. She goes in, and the woman agrees to kind of direct them to a service lift so they can escape the particular level that they're on. And so Anderson's very grateful. She's kind of thanking the woman for helping them, and the woman's very honest. Is like, I'm not actually helping you as such. I just want you both gone, because any threat to me and my child are gone because you're away from here. And Anderson's kind of very empathetic towards her, and that's the point where she kind of turns around and sees a photo on the side, which is a photo of the woman's hand, and that's the man that Anderson just shot. So it's quite a really nicely done, poignant moment. It could have easily been a bit kind of cheesy or cloying or overly sort of saccharine, but it's really, I thought, a really good human moment in the film.
Yeah, because it shows that even when she's done the right thing, and the fact that that person was trying to kill a judge, it was the right thing to do in terms of the law. It obviously has repercussions, and that everything they do that day and every day as judges has repercussions, and you get to see the effect of that right away by...
Yeah, so this is the point where they're locked on level 76, but it's interesting because no one comes after them, so they know that the Mama clan know where they are. So they're kind of, well, why exactly are we not being You know, why is no one coming for us? That straight away, Dredd in particular is very suspicious. So he sends Anderson and Kay to hold up while he goes to look and see what's going on.
Yeah.
Which is possibly a mistake.
And this is where they get the chain guns, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's kind of he basically goes to one of the levels, and that is the point where they've got everyone shooting at him from the side, and the Gatling kind of chain guns, and yeah, he's it's not good. And at the same time as this is happening, of course, this is the point where again, you know, he's left Anderson on her own with Kay, and that's when things start to get a bit darker there as well.
Yeah, well, I think isn't it when he comes back, or they're in a classroom anyway of a school, and Dredd's kind of talking to Kay, and he says, "Why would they not kill you? Why are they after you? Why are they so desperate for you not for us to escape with you? There's something, you know, you're not telling us. What is he not telling us?" And he won't say anything, obviously. So Dredd starts beating him up and nuts him with his helmet. And then Anderson says, "Well, you know, I can get the information out of him another way." And that's when she goes into his mind to find the answers.
Isn't that the second time?
I don't know, but I can't remember the order. But it's around this where.
Yeah, it's all in that kind of area. Cause I think the first time is when she's left on her own with him, and then he starts thinking of kind of sexual things with her and sort of threatening things with her, tries to scare her into committing suicide or to giving up, basically. Yeah. But she kind of turns the tables on him. Yeah.
So they manage to escape the Gatling gun, and they get outside where the kids are kind of...
skate ramp, isn't it?
Yeah, these kids were stuck outside. The shutters came down, and they were skating in the daytime, and suddenly they're locked outside on this little platform, 78 or whatever it is, levels up. Dredd manages to get a signal, tell them what's going on.
That's right.
Gets a word back to HQ, and he's like, "Well, we can't stay out here. We're sitting ducks. We've got to go back inside."
That's right. And that's when he's basically, you know, why do all this just to kill two judges? It doesn't make sense.
Yes.
That's when he starts strangling the perp.
Yeah, and then she goes into his mind to find out what was going on and the fact that he's involved in the drug trade and that this is the distribution center for all of the SLO-MO and Megacity One.
That's right. It's all being
manufactured. Responsible.
That's right. It's all being manufactured and distributed from that.
Yeah. So they're trying to. Then he's looking at a map and trying to find out where it might be. When there's two kids try to kill Dredd, they tried to get him to put his hands up, and he's like, "Why?" Because we've got a gun. And he's like, "Your safety's on." What? And then he's got a gun out as well, and it's just like he's even the odds in a second because they're so young and stupid, and they don't know what they're doing, and it goes from bad to worse because Kay uses the distraction to kidnap Anderson and take her up to level 200, and suddenly Dredd is now stuck in the middle of this level by himself, and they're all coming for him.
Yeah, and it's also, you know, Mama is quite angry with Kay because the two things he should have done was he judges it himself. If he couldn't do that, he should have killed himself. That was kind of the only acceptable routes of action in her mind.
Yeah.
I love the bit here because Mama obviously announced the whole building that that everyone needs to either get away or help them go after the two judges, and it's a really nice reverse where Dredd gets into the system and he starts saying, "You know, she's not the law, I am the law," and tricks them with his location and fires off an incendiary. And then the great thing then, if he's now on the offensive, so they've kind of been coming for him. You know, best form of defense being attack. He's on his own. He's going to get them.
And in some ways, I think he's almost liberated by being by himself because he's not responsible for anybody else now. It's just himself. He doesn't have to worry about Anderson. He knows exactly what he's capable of and how to do it, how to get the job done. So he tricks those guys. He blows them up with an incendiary. He starts just going to town and just taking them all apart.
Think as well, the kind of action he's taking is now justified because they've got a judge hostage. So they've tried to kill her. So he can basically do whatever he wants now. Whereas before he's probably quite frustrated that he couldn't kill the Kay because 99% certain. Well, now, I can kill whoever I want.
Yeah, he's thinking, well, she's probably dead by now anyway, so he can go in there and just take them all apart. But then Mama does something quite interesting. She calls for judges.
Yes. And you're like, oh, Okay, it's an interesting thing. And 4 of them turn up, don't they? Because 2 of them can't get in, that's right. And then 4 more turn up.
Yeah, they responded to his call saying, judges in distress need some support. They can't get in. The guys saying, "Oh, we're doing this and a test," and the doors won't open, and they're just loitering outside. And these 4 of the judges turn up and just sort of say, we can't get in. Open the door. The door's open straight away. And he's like, "You're dismissed." And Lex comes straight up level 200 to see Mama.
Yeah, and for 1 million credits, they'll go after Dredd, and actually the first thing they say is, "Kill Anderson, get her out of the way." So it's pretty cold.
Yeah, and so at that point, everyone's saying, "Do you know who he is?" And he's like, "I do. I know what he's capable of." So if you'd never heard anything about Judge Dredd before ever, and I doubt anybody's gone into film had no awareness of it, you'd think at this point, hang on, they all know who he is, so he has a reputation. We've already seen somebody can do, and yet even within the judges, they all know who he is. And I wouldn't say it was fear that Lex was speaking with, but it was because he was quite arrogant in some ways.
But then there were still 4 of them.
Yeah,
which I think, they're happy to take him out for that money, but they know it's going to take all 4 of them to do it.
Yes, because he's got a reputation. They know exactly, they think they know exactly what he's capable of, and that he's incredibly dangerous. And that I also get the feeling they kind of hate him a bit, not just because of the situation that they're in, but that he is so black and white. That there's no grey with him, and yet they're all completely grey because of what they're doing.
And I think it's almost like an old kind of 70s cop film, is that the one clean cop almost is the one that no one else can quite understand, or the one kind of he's he may what he does is very extreme, but at least there's a justification in a way for what he does, whereas they're basically just going to work for if they're willing to, for 1 million credits, change like that, then you can see why they would like him.
Yeah, and you get the idea that looking at Lex, he had not perhaps quite as good a chin, but did have the stubble, and he did look quite dishevelled. And I'm thinking, he's been doing this a while. He's not a fresh-faced judge. None of them are. They've all been doing it for years, successfully, and they weren't crooked to any major degree. They're still working, or they're clever enough not to have been found out. But suddenly they're just kind of gone, it's not worth it. We're doing all of this. We're saving people. We're killing, judging people. It's just not worth it. So they just kind of go, nah, I'll sell out. Yeah. So they go after Dredd, and this is when Kay gets a nice surprise when he tries to take out Anderson.
Yes, that's right.
With the lawgiver.
That's right, because he's taken the lawgiver, and then expects to kill her, the load, and then basically blows his arm off.
Yes, because it's coded to her palm print and DNA. So as soon as he tries to do it, it blows him off, and then she just kicks him in the face. And I was going to say, I think he's dead at this point.
Yeah, but it's always good to make sure. But I think what's really good here is, up until now, it's all been about her mental ability. Really, she's been kind of walking along behind Dredd, but here she shows that she's got a physical prowess as well, and that she can handle herself. So I think it's splitting apart can go more full on, and so she gets the opportunity to actually look after herself is really, really good.
Yes, yeah, and also that when Dredd comes up against one of the crooked judges and he starts talking to him and he realizes that something's off, there's no massive reaction even then. Dredd just kind of goes, yeah, okay, and he just takes out the other judge as if, almost not as if he expected it, but it just didn't surprise him that he's seen everything.
Yeah,
there's nothing that can phase him now. He's just like, yeah, okay, right, you're crooked. Bang, takes out the guy, chops him in the neck.
You get the feeling that's no different than anything else that he'd encounter. So he's like, he says, betray the law, betray the city. It's almost as if, people have done this before, and they're not going to get the better of me. And it does feel like you said before, that Dredd's on a bit of a pedestal, and this isn't just about the money. It's also about knocking him off that pedestal, because they kind of think that he's cocky or arrogant or untouchable.
Yes, I think it's all of those things that he seems to be, or he thinks he is, and they want to prove that he's just as human as they are and just as fallible as they are, and so they're determined to take him out. And Dredd manages to take out 2 of the judges before Lex gets the better of him, but of course Anderson at this point has already killed her own judge.
Yes.
A female judge. I can't remember her name because I couldn't read her badge.
No, I can't either.
Anyway, but yes, she gets the drop on the judge because she's obviously
it's good as
psychic.
well because they say that I think the judge says that whatever happens, she's going to win because Anderson will hesitate, but she doesn't hesitate, which I think is really good as part of her kind of character development. She goes from being someone who doesn't do. Actually, she's done this one day. She's learning her kind of street smarts, her kind of, kind of kicking. I also really like the fact that Dredd does get taken down. He's not an invincible hero. He's somebody that can be shot. He does bleed. He can fall to the ground. It can look like, he's pretty much beaten.
Yeah, and then he just sort of says, wait, and Lex just can't believe it. He's like, wait for what? What's the great Judge Dredd going to say? That's your last words? Wait, really? Really, what for? What for? Because you can't stand, to be away from this city. You want to be in this wonderful place for 1 minute more. And he's just like, no, for her. And, yes, Anderson just blows the shit out of Judge Lex. So.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think at this point, everything because Mama has suddenly lost most of her main sort of cohorts. The judges have all been taken out, and the tables have completely turned. And now, she's the hunted, and it's only a matter of time, really.
And this is when he says she says, let's finish. And he says, let's finish this. She goes, okay. And he goes, are you ready? She goes, yeah, you look ready. And now it's almost like a montage of them just going up the levels and blowing the shit and taking out everybody. They're taking out the SLO-MO distribution centre, and now they take up the last Marmar's people. And then...
and that's right. This is the point where Anderson says that she's already failed because she lost her weapon.
Yes, lost her primary weapon.
Yeah.
But she says, whilst it's still my assessment, so I can still make decisions. He was a victim. He wasn't a perpetrator.
That's right.
That's why she let him go.
She lets him go. Which, again, she's changed a certain amount, but she's still the same person underneath.
She hasn't lost her humanity. She still has emotions. She can still feel. She still is,
I think by the end, that's what the reason she thinks she wouldn't be a good judge. But I think also by the end that Dredd realizes that's why she would be a good judge.
Yes,
to balance.
Yeah, she still has some of her humanity. She still has empathy for other people, which I kind of the feeling he doesn't have any of at all.
No, but I think that's what impresses me, really. I think he keeps the helmet on the whole time, so he's only acting with like a third of his face. But by the end, you totally believe that he hasn't really changed, but he hasn't learned something from being with him the day. And I think that's, again, good writing and good acting as well. It kind of it's quite poignant, which you wouldn't expect necessarily in a film of this nature.
No, it's. I think it's almost like we're on the same page with this film. We've talked a lot about most of the story. So, looking at some of the other bits, or taking a step back then, and so Karl Urban as Judge Dredd. Given that you've watched this film with him, and a few years before we had Sylvester Stallone in the helmet.
I'm the law.
I'm the law.
So I didn't quite catch that.
So I could probably guess what your preference of the two is, but what do you think he did as Dredd?
I think it's one of the best casting of all time.
Wow.
Certainly of a genre film. I bought it. By the end of the film, he is Judge Dredd. I just completely and utterly bought it.
And you don't think that Stallone could do a better job if he kept the helmet on?
No, I think there's no Rob Schneider which helps, but that film is so kind of OTT and otherworldly. Whereas this is much more, it could be 10 years' time, this could be 15 years' time, this could be, it's just so much more grounded. It's they are like chalk and cheese, really. But this just feels a lot more, a lot more grounded. But it's that whole development as well, two characters, because at first I wasn't sure about having Anderson in it and doing it as kind of a rookie and assessment thing, but all that stuff, as we've talked about really, it's a 95-minute film with relatively minimal dialogue, but there's two really believable characters, and their relationship, I think, is really believable. So I thought they're both exceptional. I thought both the lead actors do an amazing job.
Because I've not seen her in anything before this, and I thought she was fantastic as well. I bought the character that she's very young and vulnerable, and yet she's gone through a lot herself, because she talks about having grown up in one of the mega blocks and her parents and all the rest of it, and being an orphan. And so I really bought it. There was no point where, obviously I couldn't see a lot of Karl Urban, but there's no point when I thought I'm watching Karl Urban like I am every time I watch a Tom Cruise film. I think, oh, it's Tom Cruise, being whoever he's supposed to be as Tom Cruise.
I think, not being kind of a star vehicle, it's just, again, it goes back to years ago when you're watching a film because it's an interesting story and it's well performed. So I've seen everything before, but Juno, I think, is the only thing I didn't realise she was in until looking it up that I've probably seen her in previously.
Yeah, me too. I've seen that film, but I can't even remember who she was in it. But yeah, she was really good. Lena Headey was really menacing as Mama. But obviously, hats off has to be to, or not in this case, to Karl Urban as Dredd. He was just fantastic. And you can't really compare this to the other one at all because they did try to do the larger-than-life epic. We're changing the whole of the judges and everything. Now, unfortunately, well, to be fair, there's some of the stuff in that film that I've gone and learned since is obviously from comics and is real. Yeah. That, Dredd's a clone, he had his brother Rico was a criminal, and all that stuff is there, and the ABC Warriors were the first sort of the law and all kind of stuff. That's all there, and it's all true to the comic form, but it's what they did with it.
Yeah, and I think those elements would work really well in a sequel to this, more than they did in that film. So bringing those, maybe the next stage of finding out about Dredd is finding out about Rico, it's finding out about, Judge Death and all these kind of things you do with it. I think they could do too much in that first film, whereas here it's quite a simple film, and I think that's a main benefit. That could also be why it did as well as it could have done, because I think the cinema audience these days seem to have keep their phones on and keep their brains off, unfortunately. But I think it's not a clever film, but it's certainly not a dumbed down film in any way.
Yeah. I almost hope they don't do any of the supernatural stuff. They don't do any of the Judge Death stuff because I think that'll push it just a bit too far. Because as you said, this could be 20 years in the future, or a few technical things here and there. And so being in the supernatural would take it a step too far for me. But bringing in the other stuff about the cloning, because we have cloning. Dolly the Sheep was how many years ago and all that kind of stuff, and find out that he was a clone, and maybe that's what we're hinting at, the stuff that's underneath, and bringing some of that and seeing all of the whole of justice and the judges and.
If the ban was a sequel to involve the cloning and that in that's hidden, that's genius. I don't know. There is, of course, they've done equal in which I meant to read before today, but haven't had a chance, which is Underbelly. They kind of continued it in as a comic.
Yeah, in the magazine, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't want to read really to kind of the movie verse story, but I'm interested enough to see what happens next. And if we're not going to get other films, it doesn't look at certainly on the short term, then it's expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. So the budget of this was $50 million, which isn't a lot really. Part, I guess, of it was fixed sets, and a limited set of it didn't have mass star in the lead. The director wasn't as well known.
Shot in South Africa. Yeah, all these things. I think to keep it, considering how much money is spent on other film, which I think are paying attention to this Transformers. It's this day and age. I think the reason to watch it twice because the first viewing, especially in 2D, the times were a little bit cheap. But then I kind of afterwards thought, I just like films like Seaboard, with basis that people walk under Ford and devote as a multi-story car park. So you don't have to spend a fixed amount of money to make a film. So I think I went in again and went, right, let's just watch this for the characters, the acting, and the story. And I think it's just a very, 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 very well done story.
Yeah. So the box office mojo has that it only made $35 million worldwide.
Okay.
So it lost $16 million at the box office, and DVD sales also sway toward that.
I think the home market went to go straight into the one in the US and the UK. I might have got it wrong, but I think the comparison between the box office percentage and the home watch percentage, it spiked in comparison. It outperformed its position from being a big screen.
So why do you think it didn't do as well as we hoped it would? Do you think 3D hurt it? Do you think the 18 rating hurt it?
I think both those things are probably true. I don't think it was on the screens in the US as it could have been. I know people online said they couldn't find it. I also think maybe, again, the comic reading audience went, the Judge Dredd before wasn't very good. And maybe didn't want to see the one. And it could be, I think the lack of Karl Urban is a, established, good actor. The lack of star appeal, unfortunately, these days seems to kind of hold things back, which is a shame. I wish more people would see it, because I'd really like to be talking about that, maybe there's a scene in the next 2 years. I know a lot of people are trying to get that to happen, but I think that's going to be a difficult job.
Oh. I also think a lot of real things could have hurt it. I also think outside of the UK comics fandom, I have a feeling that people were expecting something more epic, if less campy and silly than the first Dredd film was alone. So on that scale, because you think of sci-fi films around that time, or in a few years of things like After Earth and Oblivion, where the whole world has been transformed. And like we've said a few times, this is very much a day in the life. So maybe they were going expecting one thing, came out going, oh all right, it was just about a dog busting a building. You know,
I mean, that's interesting here.
Go on.
Someone's described it as Robocop crossed with Dart. Obviously, Robocop borrows a lot from it anyway. I think it has that dark kind of tone that films like the original Robocop happens in a new one we're going to. Late 80s thing to have. So the tone as well, and I hate the older rating. So many films now seem to be put down. Like New Robocop is at 12, I believe, and that just taking more bums or seats, whereas the original Robocop is now still very harsh. It reminded me of that kind of film.
Yeah, absolutely. An old school action film made in 2012 as well.
Yeah. Again, I just more films being made like this, but unfortunately, my talks, I guess makes that a lot harder. I know people compared it to which I haven't seen immediately. Have you seen the Road?
Me too. No, I also had that comparison, so I also need to go see it and talk about it another time.
Part, I think, the end is the bit where this is where his humanity comes. It's a brilliant close.
Yeah.
I think. Because assessment's over, Sam gives Dredd her badge, pretty much saying that she doesn't want to be a judge. And then the superior officer, I think, she comes over and how she did, he says, she'll pass. She's how I would be. So he's no longer black and white. At that moment in time, he's willing to accept. He's gone from 99% no, she failed by points no, to actually she made mistakes along the way. She let someone go. She lost a primary weapon. All at the start not to do. And he still feels she's a pass at the end.
Yeah. So, you're right. At the end, we get a glimpse of his is that he's kind of met Ed halfway in the middle, that he's not black and white anymore, but he hasn't completely changed. He's still Dredd. He's still very, very dangerous. And it ends almost with the voiceover about Megacity One. So, and it's a tight film. It's 95 minutes. It's sharp.
Enough with the yakety yak. What is your score?
Right then, how about we give it a score? Pete, do you want to go first since this was my choice?
Yeah, sure. I just want to thank you again, really, for suggesting this film because it got my finger out and made me watch it finally. As I said, I watched it a couple of times. So I think the first time I probably would have scored it a little bit lower, but I think I had my kind of technical head on and I was going to say, I'll give it a score. It would be higher if the budget was higher, but do you know what? It shouldn't matter. It's a really well-made film. I think it's really, really well scripted. And I think the two lead performances, I don't think it could have been much better. And it's a definitive Dredd movie. So I'm going to give it a 5.
Wow, and that's your first 5, I think.
It is. It is my first 5. So, that just goes to show how much I liked it, really.
Wow.
They don't make them like this anymore, but obviously do.
Yeah, okay. So I agree. I think it was an excellent Dredd film. It was far superior to the other one. The tone was right. The setting was brilliant. It was just a slice of life, a day in the life of Dredd, and all of the actors and performances were spot on. So I'm going to have to give it 5 bags out of 5 as well.
Gosh, that's the perfect median, I believe.
Yes. It's the first one we've ever both done this.
It's good.
So,
it's good. Yeah. Excellent.
If you want to let us know what you thought of Dredd, then come on to Facebook and let us know, or drop us an email or get in touch on Twitter. And we'll be back next month.
Yep.
So that's it from me.
And that's it from me.
Good night.
Good night.
You have been listening to Bags of Action. No bullshit. You'd better stick around for the next episode, because if you're lying, I'll be back.